This is a tough gig, and there's a lot of ways to bottom out. Hey everybody, so for no particular reason, I kind of had the inclination to talk about the topic of reasons that YouTubers have a tendency to burn out. And let me be very emphatic about this. No, I have not burned out. I'm not stopping. I'm not slowing down my schedule. Everything's the same. It's just a topic I want to cover. Okay? Now, this is a combination of the things that I've had to account for to keep my own schedule up and adjustments that I've had to make over the years, watching YouTubers of varying sizes, some significantly larger than me, many much smaller than me, burn out, stall, or otherwise kind of fade off. And this is probably... it's not quite like a how-to or whatever, but it's things to watch out for especially if you yourself are thinking about trying to get into this gig, which it's a tough gig. Like seriously, you have to love doing this, but we'll get to that sort of thing. Anyways, so I've got a few of these written down, and a lot of these do overlap. So there are some recurring things. First thing, you dedicate yourself to what is ultimately a niche topic. Think of whatever is your favorite thing to talk about, your favorite fandom, your favorite craft, your favorite whatever it is, the thing that you think you could talk about until the end of time. And then try actually talking about it on a regular schedule for week after week, month after month, year after year. It's a little bit tougher than it sounds. Now, that's not to say it's impossible. There are niche channels out there that actually zero in on one thing and keep doing it year over year over year. I think a great example would be SNES That channel's been going for years and is still talking about retro games, focusing on the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom. And I would have thought that he would have burned out on topics by now. And he didn't. Now, when I say niche, I mean pretty narrow, because say specifically Super Nintendo or Super Famicom, and like he deviates a little, but he doesn't change his format, that's pretty niche. Gaming is broad. So like for me, geek culture and fandom, that's broad. Doctor Who is niche. Now, while I talk about Doctor Who more than I talk about anything else, it is not the only thing I talk about, and it never will be. Because while I can talk about Doctor Who a lot, I think if I made the decision it was the only thing I was going to talk about, I would have run out of stuff to say a while ago. And I think that's something a lot of people don't account for. They think, oh, but I've got this long, long list of topics. I'm like, you're going to burn through that a lot quicker than you think you are. And that's assuming you don't start to lose interest in talking about the same thing over and over and over again. And I have seen channels decide that they were tired of the topic that they built themselves on and try to pivot and have it go very badly. I don't want to name names, but within the WhoTube community, there have been channels, or at least one that I can think of, that tried to move off of talking about Doctor Who, and it didn't pan out very, very well at all. But you have to be really careful. Now, that's not to say you can't talk about niche things, but be careful about dedicating yourself to one specific niche thing, even if it's something you're passionate about. Next up, your output schedule. Now, it is super important if you're going to try and do this and you're going to try and actually build a following. Because, like, if this is a hobby, this is like, I'll make a video when I have time and feel like it. Cool. Awesome. That's a valid way to do this. You can do this for fun. Not everyone has to try and build a following. But if that's what you're going to do, a regular output schedule is very, very important. And I know a lot of us can look at some of the really big YouTubers out there, and certainly a lot of the ones I admire. I can look at the work of somebody like ContraPoints or Folding Ideas or Philosophy Tube, or even someone like Sarah Z, and go, well, you know, some of them are putting out like a video a month and they're doing great. Like, yeah, but they caught a wave in most cases. They had something that really caught on at some point along the line that got them to a position where they are now at a size where they can get away with doing it that infrequently. Most of them, not all, but most of them used to upload more regularly. Philosophy Tube's a great example. He started out doing weekly, then it was bi-weekly, and now it's monthly. Now, in accordance, his productions have gotten more and more elaborate, but you know, he had to adjust his schedule as his approach changed. And that is a big thing. It's okay to change your schedule. You need to still keep one. I think a video a week really, if you're serious about trying to build something, should be a minimum. But I've changed my schedule. About a chunk of last year, I was doing a video a day. And I kept that. And I'm actually super proud that I kept that. But eventually I also hit a point where I'm like, I'm not going to be able to keep this up. So I need to adjust it now on my own terms before I bottom out on this. And so now I'm 4 videos a week. Now, obviously, I still have other things that I think of beyond these 4, which is why I started doing the break room and things like that. But the break room is not something that I'm trying to build with the same focus as this. It's just a place for me to do the sorts of things that used to just be, that I used to do this to fill days, but now I kind of can do for fun. So, you know, having backup and ways to vent things like that, that can work, but don't overschedule yourself, but still keep a regular schedule. Next up, this is one that I don't think a lot of people ever talk about when they talk about YouTubers burning out. Faked enthusiasm and faked energy. A lot of YouTubers, both successful and trying to be successful, do really high energy, like artificially high. And I'm not knocking that as a presentation method, that's fine, but you do have to be careful because when your presentation is all about being like this big, hey everybody, how we doing today? Okay, yeah, and you're gonna have that level, you are gonna burn yourself out, just energy. Oh, just over the course of that shoot, it is going to drain you a lot more than sort of bringing it back down a little bit. So, you know, again, finding your own presentation style is important, and if high energy is part of your presentation style, my presentation style is flubbing and not editing it out, hey, then that's fine, but be careful about trying to be on too much, because if the degree to which you're trying to be on is significantly more than your natural sort of way of being, it's going to be more effort, which means it's going to be more draining, which means it can be a contributor to you burning out on all of this. What did I have next? Oh, this is just sort of a disheartening thing to watch out for, and that is channel growth stagnation or plateauing. So I've had that happen to me a few times. Example for me, 2018 was a really big year for me. I went from 10,000 subscribers to 30. That was a huge, huge year for me. And I thought, well, I can keep this growth up. I wasn't so naive as to think that the increased pace of growth was going to keep going, but I thought I could do that again. So I thought, end of 2019, I'll be at 50. I wasn't. I was a little over 40. And things didn't drop off steadily, but like I went from a period of fairly steady growth to subscriber growth going more down here and sort of staying here and spiking a little and then staying. And that was disheartening for a while because I felt like, well, I must be doing something wrong. I had all this growth before. Where did it go? Well, the algorithm doesn't always favor you. And sometimes you just aren't in the heat, in the moment. I got lucky in 2018. I had a couple of videos like go what was big for me. I had some of my earlier videos on LGBTQ plus representation did very well for me that year. New Doctor Who at the tail end of the year was a big boost to get me over the hump at the very end. And then we got into 2019 and you know what? Doctor Who's not airing and I'm still talking about it. That takes me out of favor in the algorithm. Now, I don't regret making the decision to continue to talk about Doctor Who even when it wasn't on the air because a lot of the people who subscribe to me want that from me. So, this isn't specifically about burning out, but be careful about chasing growth at the expense of the people who you already have. You do have to be careful about that. So there's also an inability to expand. This is similar to the niche topic thing, but it's slightly different because, you know, your niche topic, if you've gone that road, you can maybe still find things slightly, you know, related to it, but like start to branch out and expand a little bit. But if you start to really establish yourself, especially in a format, regardless of topic, but if you really build something around a specific format of presentation, format of video, and you try and do something else, even more so than altering your topic, you might lose your audience doing that. Because if you have a presentation style and a format that people have really gravitated to and they really enjoy, they will probably stick with you through topic shifts. Assuming that, you know, it's not completely drastic. You know, if you go from talking video games to start making crafting videos, even if you somehow manage to do that in the same format, you might lose some people there. But you have a little more leeway in topic than you do in presentation. A lot of folks, you know, you can look at an evolution of presentations where, you know, video, I think someone like Passion of the Nerd is a good example of that. His videos have evolved. They've gotten more in depth. They've gotten longer, but his format still has been consistent all the way through to where he is right now. And altering your format, ditching the style and the presentation that people are currently watching you for, that really can bite you in the butt. But the flip side of that is if you feel like you can't change your presentation and you can't change your format and you don't have the freedom to experiment because of the risk of losing who you have, that can also be disheartening, and that can lead to burnout because you can start to feel trapped by the format you've made for yourself that you know you can't alter without losing more than you can afford to lose. So that's another one. Next up, I've got bad news for folks who are extroverts. This is really solitary work. The thing is, people always get surprised if they find out that YouTubers, especially, you know, the presenters, the people whose faces are on these, if they are introverted. I'm kind of a weird thing myself. I think of myself as a bit of an introverted extrovert, which I know sounds completely contradictory, but what I mean by that is if I'm in a situation where I am comfortable, I can be incredibly extroverted, but I do have to have that initial comfort level. You can't drop me in a party or a gathering full of people who I don't know for an occasion that I know nothing about, where I feel like maybe I don't really have a place there. I'm not someone who can just go, well, I'll make a place for myself. No, that's not me. I'll be uncomfortable. I'll stand in the corner for a while and then I'll go home. So, you know, as much as this presentation, like, oh, but you put yourself out there, you must be an extrovert. No, not as much as you'd think. I have an ego, but that's not the same thing. There's such a thing as introverts with an ego. But the thing is, I think some people get attracted to this by that sort of presentation of being really outgoing. And like, well, I'm really outgoing. Like, yeah, but you're going to do a lot of this by yourself. You're going to sit in front of a camera by yourself. Then you're going to sit in front of a computer and edit by yourself. Then you're going to moderate your comment section by yourself. This is very solitary work. And even if you get help, I do have help. On my live streams, I have some people who are mods, and they are an immense help. I have someone else who does my thumbnails. But you know what? None of them are physically in the same space as me. I communicate with them, but it's over the internet, and ultimately I'm still in a room by myself working at this. And if you're not up to being solitary and working for long stretches of solitary time like that, you'll find out real quick that this isn't for you. And finally, this one, sometimes the topic that you're on and that you want to talk about or that you've built things around can turn sour on you. That can happen in a number of ways. That can happen in the sense that especially within geek spheres. If something you're a fan of, if the franchise starts going in a direction or takes a turn that you don't enjoy, that can sour things for you. My friend Ryan, who's actually in the logo, I haven't had him on the channel in a while. I gotta get these people back in here, I really do, but scheduling is a pain in my butt. But he had a Star Wars podcast, and he basically stopped doing it after The Last Jedi came out. Now, he was a bit like me, having similar issues with The Last Jedi that weren't the issues that the loudest, most pissy fans were screaming about, but it really sort of soured his interest in the franchise, and he couldn't bring himself to keep talking about it. So he kind of stopped. Now, granted, that's a podcast. This is a YouTube channel that I'm talking about, but it's kind of the same principle. So that's one way. It's also possible that you can start to examine something to death. If something that you enjoyed as a hobby and as something that you would just did for fun, you start doing that for work effectively, because whether this is your living or not, if you're going to take it seriously, you are effectively taking on at the minimum a part-time job worth of work. You start doing it for work, and it can take some of the fun out of it. And you can find yourself sitting down to watch something that used to be nothing but entertainment and start to analyze it with an eye that makes you way more critical of it than you used to be. And you find yourself not enjoying it as much anymore. That could be a reason that you feel that you need to back off, and so that you can stop looking at it through this critical lens. Or it's also possible that the fandom that you have built around itself has gone nasty. I think we've seen that in a number of areas. I don't know of any instances where I've seen that cause people to burn out completely on YouTube, but I have seen some folks back off and take time off from talking about topics that they used to love because of how toxic the conversation became. And not even that like they themselves felt toxically about it, but like what was going on in their comment section and what they had to see being part of that community was turning them sour. Again, I've seen YouTubers who have gone through this in the last few years. And that's another reason that you might feel like this topic that I came in here to talk about, I don't want to anymore. And like I said, I don't think any one of these is the reason someone will burn out, but these are all things that can contribute to people kind of throwing up their hands and going, I can't do this anymore. So there are things to be aware of, things to be cautious about, things that I have been pretty careful about wrangling and keeping on top of. And, yeah, we'll just leave it there. Ways to burn out on YouTube. There's probably more I didn't even think of. But what are your thoughts on this? Or do you have questions? I don't know. I don't know if this is actually helpful to aspiring YouTubers. Whatever. Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A bunch of stuff to do. You can hop on to my Patreon, help me out there, be a nice birthday present, because it is my birthday this month. But if you also want to physically get me something, I have an Amazon wishlist and a P.O. box, all down in the description. Plus, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Go on, do it, or don't. End of the day, folks, you're the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.